He kissed my shoulder and stepped aside. Not far. Just aside. The way you step back from a painting that used to move you, but now just makes you think too hard. He didn't say anything, but his silence was loud and heavy. Like maybe he'd made the decision hours ago and was just now catching up to the courage it took to follow through. His breath was still warm where it landed, right there, just above the curve of my shoulder. It lingered, like a question that didn't need an answer, or one he already knew. And I stood there, completely still, because if I moved, if I turned around and looked at him, I think the whole truth might have spilled right out of me. That something inside me was aching. Quietly, yes, but deeply, in places I didn't even have names for. And the worst part? I loved him. Still do, in a way that feels inconvenient and impossible. But I had been hungry for something I couldn't point to. Not food, not sex, not even love. At least, not the kind that comes with date nights and forehead kisses and warm hands in the middle of the night. It was a different kind of hunger, like being starved for color after living in beige for too long. And the thing is, I didn't even know it had a name. Not yet. If you've ever wondered what happens when love asks for more than comfort, more than rules. If you've ever felt safe, but not seen, close, but not touched where it counts, then stay here with me. Like, subscribe, and let yourself feel. This is Olivia Touching Tales. Let's begin. There was a candle burning on the windowsill. Not for mood. Just because I needed the light to be soft. I remember I had one leg tucked under me and a glass of wine I hadn't touched in 20 minutes. I was tracing the rim with my finger. Slowly. The glass was cool. Smooth. And I kept going in circles, like I was trying to hypnotize myself into calm. He was across the room, folding laundry. Not saying a word. Not looking at me. But I felt him, like I always did. Steady. Predictable. Good. He came over eventually. Touched my knee, like he always does when he wants to ground me. His fingers grazed the skin just above it, barely pressing down. And I leaned in. Because my body still knew him. Still remembered what safety felt like. Still wanted to be close. He kissed my neck. Just once. And for a second, my eyes closed. But not because it thrilled me. Because I needed to imagine it was someone else. Not a specific someone. Just someone who wasn't so careful. So, sure. He touched me the way a man touches what's already his. Confident. Gentle, measured. And I think, once upon a time, I would have melted into that. But something in me ached for the unmeasured. For the kind of touch that doesn't ask permission. The kind that sees you and takes you. With reverence, but with hunger. I let him kiss me. I let his hands roam a little. And I pretended. Not to deceive him. But to hold on. To the part of us that still worked. He was here. But I was halfway somewhere else. Not out of disrespect. Out of longing. Out of a quiet, terrifying, inconvenient truth. That being loved wasn't the same as being consumed. He slid behind me in bed like he always did. One arm wrapping over my waist. That familiar curve of his palm landing flat on my stomach. Like a placeholder for closeness. The sheets were cool. Cotton. A little stiff from being line-dried. But his body warmed the space around me. That part was always true. He was warmth. Steady, reliable warmth. Like a house that never got too cold, even in winter. I let my body mold into his. I even smiled a little, the way you do when your mind knows you're supposed to feel lucky. Safe. Loved. And I was. But also, I wasn't here. Because while his hand rested softly across my middle, my body didn't tighten with anticipation. It relaxed. Completely. Too completely. Like I was already falling asleep. And that scared me more than I wanted to admit. Because intimacy should stir you. Wake something up in you. Make you feel close and craved and claimed, all at once. But I just felt settled. Like a letter placed carefully on a desk, waiting for someone to read it. But no one ever does. His fingers started to move. Just slightly. Tracing small circles against my skin. Testing the air between us. I didn't stop him. Didn't move away. But my breath didn't catch either. Because this wasn't foreplay. This was routine. Sweet, yes. Thoughtful, but also scripted. Familiar to the point of invisibility. Like a song I loved once, but had heard so many times that now I didn't hear it at all. He shifted, kissed the back of my neck. It was soft. Gentle. It didn't make me shiver. Not like it used to. Not like it should have. I knew how this scene would go. He'd whisper something low. Something sweet but tired. He'd cup me tighter. Wait for me to press into him just enough to say, okay? And I'd give it. I always did. Not because I didn't want him, but because I didn't want him to feel unwanted. But inside, I was screaming. Not in rage. In hunger. The kind that makes your chest ache at random moments. The kind that shows up in dreams, in fantasies you don't say out loud. The kind that lives behind the eyes when you smile and say, I'm fine. He rolled me onto my back slowly, kissed down my collarbone, paused at my chest. His breath was warm. His touch was light. It was everything a woman is supposed to want. And yet I wanted more. Not in volume. In texture. In risk. In being undone. There's a kind of love that lets you rest. And a kind that pulls you apart, just to show you what's inside. He gave me the first. But my soul, my body, my hunger, it whispered for the second. And it wasn't his fault. He was doing everything right. But right wasn't enough anymore. Because being desired is one thing. But being devoured? That's something else entirely. And my skin. My breath. My ache. It had stopped asking for permission. It just wanted to be held without being coddled. To be kissed like a secret, not a favor. To be met with intensity, not politeness. He moved above me, sweet and slow. Our breaths matched rhythm. But I felt like I was watching it from across the room. I wasn't cold. I wasn't numb. I was just somewhere else. Not in fantasy. Not imagining another man. Not replacing him. But reaching into some invisible place. Somewhere I hadn't let myself go before. Where I wasn't a wife. Or a lover. Or even a woman doing what she was supposed to do. I was just sensation. Waiting to be found. Waiting to be seen without performance. Touched without pretense. And when it ended. When he finally laid beside me again, breath slowing. I turned on my side, curled toward the edge of the bed. He kissed my shoulder again. And I smiled. But it was the kind of smile that hides something. Something soft. And aching. Because love was here. But I wasn't. And that's when I realized. It's possible to be held every night. And still feel completely untouched. I wasn't done. But it wasn't his fault. That night, after he drifted off, one arm draped over me, soft breath warm on my neck. I stared at the ceiling. Not because I was upset. Not because he failed. But because something in me was still awake. Still reaching. He had given what he had. Lovingly. Willingly. Completely. And I had received it. But still, I was left holding an ache that wasn't satisfied. Not for lack of effort. Because God, he tried. Morning kisses, always just before the alarm. His lips brushing my forehead, like a prayer he forgot the words to. He'd put the coffee on before I got out of bed. Fold my sweater over the back of the chair where I always left it. He remembered the little things. The right brand of oat milk. The playlist I liked when I cleaned. That I always needed a few extra seconds to answer a question in the morning. He noticed me. And at night, he'd whisper things. Things like, "You're still the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. You feel like home. I hope you know how much I want you." I believed him. Every word. Every kiss. Every soft intention. I believed he loved me. But there's a difference between being loved and being undone. And I was starting to learn that love, At least the kind we built. Wasn't the kind that undid you. It held me. But it didn't open me. We had weekends away. He planned them. Cabins with fireplaces. Little boutique hotels with velvet chairs and overpriced wine. We'd laugh, sleep in, take walks, share plates of food like lovers in a movie. It was picture perfect. But underneath it, I kept waiting for the moment something would spark. When I'd be caught off guard by how badly I needed to touch him, or when his voice would drop in my ear and I'd forget the world around me. But those moments, they came less and less. Or maybe I just stopped pretending when they didn't. Because here's the truth no one tells you. You can adore someone completely and still feel like something in you is quietly starving. You can laugh at their jokes, miss them when they're away, feel safe in their arms, crave their scent on a pillow, and still wonder, what would it feel like to be wrecked? To be met not with softness, but with fire? Not because softness is wrong, but because something in you has never been melted. I didn't want more. I wanted different. I wanted to be mirrored so clearly, so deeply, that I didn't recognize myself in the reflection. I wanted to lose the version of me that always knew what to do, how to respond, how to perform, how to please, and just be. Be seen, be read, without explaining, be touched, without asking. I wanted to dissolve into someone else's certainty. I didn't want him to try harder. That wasn't the problem. Trying wasn't the answer. Because love, as we knew it, was structured, careful, built on routines and kindness and showing up. But desire? Desire isn't structured. It's messy, unpredictable. It's a force that shows up uninvited and tears the neat edges off the page. And I had been coloring inside the lines for so long. I forgot what it felt like to spill. He loved me. I know that. But love alone doesn't tear your breath from your lungs in the middle of the night. It doesn't leave you shaking, not from fear, but from recognition. Love steadies you. Desire unravels you. And somewhere in the quiet, between the morning coffee and the late-night kisses, I realized I needed to be unraveled. Not because what we had was broken, but because what I needed didn't live there anymore. And maybe it never did. That was the hardest part to admit. That I had asked for something I thought would be enough. And now? Now I wasn't sure if I'd ever really known what enough looked like. Because I was still hungry. And not for novelty. Not for rebellion. Not for something cheap or secret or shameful. But for depth. For risk. For a kind of presence that stopped time. The kind where eyes don't look at you. They search you. The kind of touch that doesn't ask permission. Not because it's careless, but because it already knows the answer. I wanted to be known. Fully. And I had never been. And maybe, just maybe, that wasn't his fault either. Maybe that was the part of me I had never handed over. Because I didn't think anyone could hold it. But now, I wondered if someone could. And if I found them, would I go? Would I follow that ache? Even if it meant leaving the comfort of love, for the chaos of being truly seen? It happened in the quiet. Not during an argument. Not during a crisis. Not in the heat of anything. Just a still night. After dinner. After dishes. After everything had settled into that familiar rhythm we called life. We were in bed. Not touching. But not far. That kind of space that still feels warm, even in silence. The lamp was still on. He was facing the wall. And I could tell he wasn't asleep. I could feel it. That subtle tension in the room. Like a storm forming where no clouds should be. Then, his voice broke through the dark like a thread unraveling. Am I not enough for you? Just like that. No anger. No accusation. Only ache. I didn't respond right away. Not because I didn't have an answer, but because I knew the answer would change something. And once you say the thing you've been afraid to name, you can't unsay it. The silence stretched. I turned toward him. I didn't touch him. I couldn't. Instead, I whispered, "You're everything I asked for." And I meant it. Every syllable. Because he was. He was safety. He was loyalty. He was warmth. He was effort and kindness, and the kind of love that shows up even when it's tired. But then I said the part one hadn't known how to admit, not even to myself. But I'm discovering I asked for less than I needed. There it was. The truth, naked and trembling between us. I didn't cry. I just breathed, shallow, careful, waiting for the break, waiting for the crack in his voice, or the sharp edge of hurt that would cut through what we'd built. But he didn't break. He didn't lash out. He didn't even move. He just kept facing the wall. I could hear him swallow. And then, after what felt like an eternity, he whispered, "If I could give you more without losing us, would you take it?" My breath caught, because that question, it didn't come from fear, or anger, or defeat. It came from love. A love that didn't want to own me, but understand me. And in that moment, I saw him not as my husband, but as a man. A man trying to reach a part of me I hadn't let anyone reach. A man standing on the edge of something unrecognizable, holding out his hand. It would have been easier if he'd gotten mad. If he'd told me I was selfish, or crazy, or chasing fantasy. But he didn't. He met me in that terrifying space between love and longing, and offered me a bridge. Would you take it? I didn't answer. Not right away. Because how do you say yes to something that might unravel everything? And also save it? I just laid there, letting the weight of his words settle into my bones. I thought about what more meant. What it could look like. What it might cost. Would it be a betrayal? Or an evolution? Would it break us apart? Or finally set us free? And deeper still, would I even be able to receive it? To surrender? To allow? To take without shame, without guilt, without explaining every need like an apology? That night, we didn't touch. We just laid there, both of us staring into the darkness, holding something invisible, but unbearably heavy. And even though no decision had been made, I knew something had shifted. The question had been asked. And once a door like that is opened, you see it even when your eyes are closed. You feel it pulsing in the space between every normal moment. You hear it echoing in the background of every casual conversation. That question didn't just hang in the air. It took root in me, and I carried it, quietly, tenderly, like a secret too sacred to rush. Because I knew, if I said yes, it wouldn't just change our love. It would change me. It was 3 nights later. We hadn't talked much since that question. But the air between us, it was different. Not colder, just fuller. Like something unsaid had started to bloom between us. That night, after brushing his teeth, he came into the bedroom like normal. Set his glass on the nightstand, turned the lamp down low, and then he reached into the drawer by the bed and handed me a folded note. Just paper. No explanation. No expression. Just a gesture. I took it without speaking. My hands were steady, but something in me wasn't. I unfolded the paper slowly, like it might bite if I moved too fast. Inside, there was a name, a place, a time, written in his handwriting. Small, quiet, clear. I looked up at him. He didn't say much. Just, "He's someone I trust." And then, after a pause, "He's agreed to meet you, if you want." That's all. No rules. No conditions. No report back to me or don't fall in love. Just an open door. A hand holding it open, but not pulling me through. He didn't touch me that night. He just kissed my forehead, turned off the light, and went to sleep. But I didn't. I laid awake, staring at the ceiling. My mind full of thunder and questions and heat I couldn't name. Was I really allowed to do this? Was it even real? And what would it say about me if I said yes? The next day passed in a blur. Breakfast, emails, laundry. But underneath it all, I could feel it. That folded note still burning in my bag like a secret no one had asked about, but everyone might see. That evening, I got dressed slowly. Not like a date, Not like I was meeting a stranger. More like preparing to meet a version of myself I'd hidden for too long. I wore something simple. Nothing loud. Nothing too planned. Just a black dress I'd forgotten I owned. One that skimmed my skin like a memory I hadn't earned yet. When I got to the place, my heart was louder than my heels. It was quiet, private, soft-lit, the kind of space that invites silence and holds it without judgment. I walked in and gave my name. The woman at the front didn't blink. She just nodded and gestured toward a room in the back. As I walked, I noticed everything. The hum of low music. The scent of something faint and woody in the air. The way the light bent across the floor like spilled honey. And then I saw him. He stood when I entered. Not tall, not imposing, but steady. Like he knew what this moment was, and respected it. He didn't reach for me. Didn't smile too wide. Just offered a seat. And silence. I sat. My knees were pressed together. My hands folded in my lap like a girl trying not to shake. He waited. No rush. No small talk. And somehow, that was the most seductive thing of all. I could feel my breath slowing, my pulse settling into something deeper. And in that quiet, something inside me opened. I don't remember who spoke first. I just remember the tone of the room shifting. From uncertainty to invitation. I remember the way he looked at me. Not hungry, not dominant. Just aware. Like he saw me before he saw my body. And I remember this moment. When he said, "You don't have to do anything. But if you want to, I'll listen." That word, listen. Not touch. Not take. Not seduce. Listen. And that's when I knew. This wasn't cheating. This wasn't betrayal. This was a boundary being redrawn. With consent. With reverence. With something most affairs never hold, truth. My pulse danced between guilt and awe. Between curiosity and a kind of grief I couldn't name. Grief for the woman who had denied herself. Grief for how long I had waited to feel this scene. I wasn't thinking about my husband in that moment. Not because I didn't love him, but because he was part of this. He had made space for it. For me, this wasn't a trap or a test. It was a gift. One wrapped in risk and tenderness and the terrifying possibility of being transformed. And sitting there, in that soft room, across from a stranger who didn't feel like one, I realized something. I wasn't here to be touched. I was here to touch something in myself. I had locked away for too long. I couldn't count how many. Maybe that's what made it beautiful. The not knowing. I was blindfolded. But I wasn't lost. I was centered. Not by sight, but by sensation. By intention. By the way they moved. Not around me, but toward me. Toward something sacred. There were moments where I forgot what I looked like. Because all I could feel was how I was being seen. One of them, his touch was reverent. Fingers like poetry. Like he was writing a letter against my skin. And he didn't need ink because I would remember every word. He didn't speak. None of them did. And yet, I understood. Another, warmer. Bolder. He brushed a strand of hair from my cheek with a tenderness that belonged in a memory I hadn't made yet. He stayed close. Breath to breath. Until my chest rose in rhythm with his. Until I didn't know whose pulse I was following. There was one behind me. I never heard him arrive. But he was there. Steady. Solid. His presence like the spine of the moment. Holding everything together. One hand on the small of my back. Another just beneath my chin. Like he was guiding me not forward, but inward. To a place I'd never dared go alone. I was surrounded. Not like a circle. More like an embrace, stretched across time. And yet, I wasn't overwhelmed. I wasn't afraid. Because they weren't claiming me. They were witnessing me. Inviting me to unravel. To unfold. To forget the versions of myself I'd carefully rehearsed. And let something wordless take their place. I remember someone exhaling near my ear. Just a soft breath. And somehow it was more intimate than any kiss. Another's fingers grazed my collarbone, slowly, like a pianist playing a single note, and holding it there until the silence around it became music. There were hands. So many hands. But none greedy. Every touch asked a question. And every sigh I gave in return was an answer. I became something I hadn't known I needed to be. Not a wife. Not a woman. Just sensation. Just surrender. One of them whispered a word I didn't recognize. Maybe it wasn't a word at all. Maybe it was just the sound of a given shape. And in the quiet, when my breath shook and my knees softened, I felt it. Not climax. Not peak. But arrival. Like I had been traveling through my own skin for years. And finally, I had come home. They stepped back before I asked them to. As if they knew. As if they'd been waiting for the exact moment I would feel complete. I didn't reach for them. Not because I didn't want more, but because I didn't need it. I just stood there. Bare. Breathless. Held by the absence of pressure. By the presence of something fuller than words. For the first time in my life, I was whole without holding. And for a long time, no one said anything. Not even me. Because what could be spoken? After you've been seen like that? The air shifted. It wasn't a change you could point to, but a collective deepening. A tension, soft but heavy. Like the moment before a storm breaks. Sounds danced around me. The rustling of breath. Slow, deliberate. The soft sound of skin against skin. Every whisper of movement felt like an invitation to something unknown. A gentle pressure. The pressure of touch that felt more like a promise than a demand. They didn't need words. The rhythm we had built was a language all its own. My chest rose. In. Out. In. A little faster now. A little louder. The pulse in my veins a quiet drumbeat, growing heavier. Then I felt it. The first touch that wasn't tentative. It wasn't testing. It was claiming. But not in the way I thought. Not possessive. No. This claim was an offering. A question, in a way. The sound of hands intertwining. Tightening. Fingers pressing against one another like we were tethered by something stronger than touch. It was the kind of touch that said, I see you. The heat came next. Slow, but unavoidable. Sweat, beads of it, like the first drops of rain before the flood. A shared warmth. It was everywhere. It was them. It was me. And then, it. The spark. The one that ignites the whole damn thing. It hit me like lightning inside my lungs. My body trembled. My skin burned. Alive, but not in pain. Not in fear. I wasn't breaking. I wasn't unraveling. I wasn't losing myself. I was blooming. I cried. Not from hurt, but from a release I didn't know I needed. It wasn't a sob. Not the kind you make when you're shattered. It was something quieter, deeper. A surrender. A letting go. I cried because I was opening. Like a flower that had only ever dreamed of sunlight. And now I was bathed in it. The sound of my breath. And theirs. And the soft, endless thrum of the room. It was the music of 1,000 stars aligning. And for the first time, I felt like I had a place among them. It didn't end with a burst. It wasn't a wave that crashed and receded. No. It was something slower. Something more drawn out. It was the moment the ocean catches its breath before it draws you back in. And then, stillness. Complete stillness. Time didn't stop. But it felt like it did. A kind of sacred pause. As if the universe itself were watching us, holding its breath, waiting. In that moment, I knew. No one moved. No one spoke. No one reached for me. It was like they knew. They knew I had become something else. Something different. Something whole. And, for the first time in my life, I felt that maybe, just maybe, I had found a place where I didn't have to fight for my worth. There, in that silence, I wasn't seeking anymore. I wasn't reaching. I was simply being. The world around me held its breath. And I let it. I let the stillness fill the empty spaces inside me. Because for once, I didn't need to fill them myself. I don't remember how I got home, but I remember the door. The quiet, steady click as it closed behind me. The stillness inside the room. It wasn't a cold silence. It wasn't heavy with expectation or the weight of secrets. It was just peace. A kind of calm I hadn't known I was capable of holding. And there he was. Waiting. Not standing. Not pacing. Not looking at his watch or checking his phone. Just waiting. There was no tension in his body, no tightening in his jaw. He wasn't angry. He wasn't jealous. He didn't need to ask questions. He didn't demand explanations. He was simply present. In the quiet, with nothing more than his presence filling the space. The way he looked at me. I could feel it before I even reached him. It was like he was seeing something new. Something he hadn't seen before. Something in me that wasn't there when I left. His eyes softened. Like a man seeing the stars for the first time. I didn't need words. I didn't need him to say anything. I just needed him to look at me like that. I crawled into his lap. I didn't care how I looked. I didn't care if I was a mess or if my clothes were still disheveled from the night. All I cared about was being here. Right here with him, in this moment. I buried my face in his neck, letting the warmth of his skin envelop me. It felt like a hug, but it wasn't just physical. It was a kind of shelter for the parts of me that had been wandering. A place I could finally rest. And for the first time in, I don't even know how long. I wasn't seeking anything from him. I wasn't reaching. I wasn't looking for something more. Because for once, I was complete. His arms wrapped around me, pulling me closer. But not in a way that felt possessive. Not in a way that told me I was his to control. No. It was simply a hold. A comfort. The kind you offer someone when you know their soul is tired and you just want to hold them until they can breathe again. We sat there. Just sat. Neither of us needing to fill the silence with words. Neither of us rushing to change the space we had found. It felt like time didn't matter. Like there was no urgency. Like the whole world had paused. Just for us to breathe in this moment. To be. I think he knew something. Without me having to say it. He knew that something inside me had shifted. That I wasn't the same person who had walked out that door. But he didn't need to know the details. He didn't need to ask. He just knew. And that was enough. For both of us. There was no guilt. No shame. No questions. Just two people who had reached a place where the past didn't matter anymore. Where there was no need to go back to what we were. Because we had found something new. Something more real. I didn't feel the need to explain. I didn't need to tell him what had happened. What I had learned. Or what had changed. He already understood. It was in the way he touched my hair. In the way his hands gently traced circles on my back. In the way his voice, when it finally broke the silence, was soft and steady. I love you, he whispered. It wasn't a question. It wasn't an assertion. It was simply truth. It was simple. Pure. And for the first time, I felt it. Not just in the words, but in the space between us. In the way we held each other. I love you, I whispered back. And I meant it. But I meant it in a way I hadn't understood before. Not just in the way we loved each other in the past, but in the way we had found a new way to be together. A way that wasn't about ownership or control. A way that was more about freedom and understanding. A way that allowed us both to be more than we were. And we sat. Still. Nothing needed to be said. There was nothing left to explain. What would you give to the one you love if they asked for something more than you? The question lingers in the air, hanging between us, weightless and heavy all at once. It's strange, isn't it? To love someone so completely, yet know that love is never quite enough. That sometimes, to truly love them, you have to let them go, let them explore parts of themselves you never thought they'd need. And then, when they come back, changed, you have to be okay with that. You have to see them not as a possession, not as someone you're entitled to, but as someone who is growing, just like you. I wonder, though, if that's something we all can do. Can we really love someone without keeping them entirely to ourselves? Without the fear that if they're more for someone else, they'll be less for us? Is keeping them close worth more than letting them become whole? Maybe it's the hardest part of love. The letting go. The trusting that the space you give them will only make them return to you, more whole, more complete. But what if they don't? What if, in their search for more, they lose sight of what was here all along? What if the journey leaves you both empty? The thoughts swirl in my mind, a dance of vulnerability and hope, of fear and acceptance. It's a delicate balance. But isn't it true? Don't we all ask, at some point, for more than what we can give? More than we can be? There's a pause, a breath. And maybe that's the truth that settles in my chest. That loved, true loved, isn't about holding on so tightly, but about giving the other person the freedom to breathe, to find themselves, and to return to you, if they choose to. Not because they need to, but because they want to. What would you give? What would you let go of? The question lingers in the quiet, waiting for your answer. Tell me what you'd do. I'm genuinely curious. This has been Olivia Touching Tales. If this story touched something deep within you, if it made you feel the ache of longing, the beauty of letting go, or the uncertainty of love, then take a moment to like, subscribe, and stay for the next chapter. Wherever you are, whoever you're with, remember that love is always more than we expect, and sometimes it's about what we're willing to give away to find it. Until next time.